Welcome back to the Horror Academic, and this is part 3 of my Italian Horror Fest. We've already hit the pretty big names, right? We've had our Dario Argento, we've had our Lucio Fulci, and the next two, while near and dear to my heart, may not be quite as well known to those who are not a fans of Italian horror cinema. So the next one I want to highlight has the reputation of being the Evil Dead in a movie theater. And that movie is Demons. Demons by Lamberto Bava, son of Mario Bava, is a bizarre, wacky, zany, gory, funny, great time. And it has pretty much everything you could find in a good 80s horror movie is right here. And probably the most important thing about this movie, to me, is just how much fun it is. The film's got a lot going on, though, so it is in that category of movie within a movie, where because the movie takes place primarily in a movie theater, the patrons are watching a horror movie. So you have kind of two movies going on at the same time. The movie starts out with a college girl on the subway. She's going to meet up with a friend before they go to class. While she's getting off the subway to get back street side, there's a strange man, all in black, with a silver half mask, kind of Phantom of the Opera-ish, handing out golden tickets to the Metropole opening. And it's a grand opening of a new movie theater, has an old movie house style to it. And there's no information on it about what the movie is that they're going to see for free. All it is the announcement with the address and a time. Oh, she makes sure she gets a second ticket so she can take her friend. And when she gets there, she convinces her friend, let's ditch class, let's go do this, let's do something fun. So they get there, and the place is a little overdone, a little, it has a very old style, a little bit Art Deco kind of style to it. But inside is very 80s neon flashy, kind of looks more like an art gallery than a theater entrance. And what you see is this kind of hodgepodge of people who also got the free tickets, and a few odd people who seem to work there. And when they all go in, they find out that the movie they're watching that night is a horror film, to which her friend is like, oh man, a horror movie? So we already know we're probably going to have fun watching them watch this film. You get like these kind of jockish kind of guys who come and sit down next to the girls. You've got this like a middle-aged couple who are bickering. You have a blind man who's there with, I believe it's his niece, who is going to interpret the movie for him, and up in the balcony. There's like a really young teenage couple, and a smattering of other people. And one of the other kind of dominant groups is essentially, it seems like a pimp and two of the girls, and they are kind of another team because they're so kind of flamboyant. They get a lot of attention. Beforehand, before they go in, one of the odd kind of art objects in the gallery there is a mask, a metal mask. One of the girls picks up the mask, puts it on to be funny and to goof on her friend, and gets a cut. In the movie that they watch, there's a group of like kids who are probably like in their 20s on motorcycles that are driving through a cemetery. The cemetery supposedly is where Nostradamus has been buried. So they are looking for the tomb of Nostradamus. Slowly we start to see strange things happening in the movie. Obviously it's kind of a little more gothic than what we're watching in the main film. And it's falling into a lot of those tropes. It's they go down into a dusty tomb. They find the grave. They open the grave and go inside. They find a mask that is kind of in cheesecloth in the tomb. A guy, much like the girl we saw in the beginning, puts on the mask to kind of be funny, and he gets a gash. When he gets cut, her the girl in the audience, Rosemary, we find out is her name, her cut starts to bleed. So now we're starting to see this strangeness of, that's kind of weird. And it kind of builds from there. As things get more intense on screen, things start to pick up in the theater itself. In the end, we're looking at a movie that becomes a huge gore fest, and it gets kind of crazy action movie qualities at times. But it is over the top. It's fun. This film is far from being a giallo. There's no kind of subtlety in the way this is told. It's not a thriller. This is a gory horror film. Let's go back a bit. So as I mentioned, the director is Lamberto Bava. Lamberto Bava, son of Mario Bava. If you're not familiar with the name Mario Bava, he is kind of the godfather of Italian horror. His career is kind of like 50s, 60s, 70s, predominantly known for his films from the 60s, like Black Sunday, starring Barbara Steele. He kind of is the industry maker. He is the one who makes horror as a viable genre to create in Italy at the time. Bava's films go on to influence Fulci, Argento, all the other names we're going to hear about. And Lamberto Bava, he grows up within film. He famously kind of co-writes with his father Shock, which I believe is one of his father's last films. So he's kind of, in some circles, spoken of as one of Dario Argento's prodigies, because he was the assistant director on several of Argento's films. But that's probably not 100% accurate. He had a fairly lucrative career. He had already directed films before he makes a film produced by Argento, which is kind of an odd spot within this film. So the way that Demons was promoted when it comes out is a Dario Argento production, to the point that the poster art had Dario Argento's name on it, not Lamberto Bava's name. Think of it like now, like in the 90s, how you would see John Carpenter presents, Wes Craven presents, Sam Raimi presents even. With the three of them, it just means it's their production company. They greenlit it. They agreed to fund it. They may have had some kind of say about a few things here and there within the script or in the final edit. To say it was an Argento production, particularly at this point, it being one of the first films Argento produces that he doesn't direct himself, he's extremely hands-on. So it's a little strange when you watch documentaries or featurettes about Demons, because there's very little talk of Lamberto Bava and this much talk about how important it was that Dario Argento produced the film, which I don't think is quite fair. Yes, Argento's hand is heavily there. He's on set. He's a little overbearing, but it's Bava's film. So just wanted to make sure we understand that this is Lamberto Bava's film, even though Dario Argento's name is all over the place on it. And even one of the documentaries I watched didn't even, I think, talk to Bava. It was all Argento, and it was all that. And even the updated Blu-ray, there was a special on it about films produced by Dario Argento, but not a featurette about director Lamberto Bava, which is quite frustrating. And that's just for me as a viewer. It's gotta suck for him. So, all that aside. So yeah, it's important because it has this, the Dario Argento produced tagline. But the other thing that brings with it that is even more important to me is a Claudio Simonetti score. So, as we discussed last time on the Suspiria episode, Argento finds Goblin, works with Goblin to make scores for his films, and they are epic in proportion. For this film, Argento brings in Claudio Simonetti. So he is the kind of piano player, the lead kind of synth player of Goblin. So the score for Demons is actually Simonetti's first time scoring a film on his own. And it is, I will say, very much a product of its time. It's got a mix of heavy synths with, distorted guitars, driving beat that's very much a drum machine, a little bit of sampling, and that kind of 80s sample stutter that you hear, say, Max Headroom use, or musically, I would say it has that Rock Me Amadeus kind of style to it. So, I mean, as a teenager watching this film, it made me laugh. But as I got older, I love it for this being like a moment captured in sound. You know, as much as Demons is kind of that fun ride that we want of 80s horror, the score does that for 80s music, I feel. And I love it for that. Well, the other thing that, if we're going to talk about music about Demons, we got to talk about is the fact that it's another one that's, and Argento gets into this later in his career after what we've seen with Suspiria, and we'll talk about with Deep Red, where he starts incorporating songs he likes. And Argento was famous for being a heavy metal fan. So he has I believe he has some influence on the music that's picked. We hear Motley Crue, there's some Billy Idol, I think there's like Saxon, Accept, a lot of that kind of stuff. And then there's kind of a little bit more cheesy pop music of the day. I remember Simonetti talking about how they had like really big artists from the time, like Go West. So it's a score, it's half score, half soundtrack. And I think it works really well also with this time period. But I will show you, this is what I was talking about. This is how the film is advertised. I hope you guys can see this. There we go. So it's Dario Argento, Demoni, a film by Lamberto Bava. So this is what I mean by how the film gets this reputation of being a Dario Argento production, directed by Lamberto Bava. Yeah, I could talk about that all day. So those are like some of the big reasons for me why this movie is just so high on my list of important Italian horror films. It's really a breakout film for Bava, putting him on the map on his own. It is so instantly popular that they are making the sequel right away. There's some discussion of how it had originally been planned as a trilogy, or but then there's other things I've read and seen where they say how, they were just so happy the film did well that they decided, let's do another. So it's a little convoluted there, but I will say Bava himself does too. I will talk about part 2 another time. Like I say, a lot of what it is it's not particularly like a horror comedy. It's not like an Evil Dead 2 kind of comedy, but it is more of just a fun feel. I find I'm using the word fun a lot to describe this movie, and I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think that really sums up kind of the party atmosphere of this flick. It's a popcorn movie full of blood and guts, and it takes place in a movie theater. So the best way to watch it is obviously in a movie theater. And if you can get that opportunity, I mean, I know I saw it with Exhumed Films years ago in South Jersey. If you get a chance to see it in a theater, I highly recommend it. There's something about a big audience of people watching an audience of people watching a movie that you get kind of wrapped up in. When I said, though, that it goes over the top in some crazy ways, I mean, this film, it has demons that are like full of pus and like vomiting blood, who, it's almost like a werewolf transformation. When one becomes possessed, you get like a scratch or whatever from another demon, and within a few minutes your eyes go first, and then your nails push out, and your face just like, wow. You're gonna have, and I guess this does take some liking to the look of Evil Dead in that way, where but it's a little bit more slick. But aside from the overtop kind of, and they're not, these aren't slow zombies, these are not Romero zombies, these are demons. These are fast moving, They'll rip you apart. They'll eat your throat out. It's a very different tone from even Zombie, I would say. Now the effects are done by Sergio Stivoletti. Stivoletti goes on to do many more productions with both Bava, I believe Sovi, and Argento, and eventually starts directing. His effects are very gooey and gross. There's a lot of color, but this was one of his first full films that he created the effects for. Let's talk a little bit about the cast. This is not a film where you're going to see a ton of familiar faces, but you will see a few. Kind of the male lead, who's our kind of hero character, is played by Urbano Barberini, who was in also Opera and the film Gore, G-O-R, which is like a sword and sandals kind of thing, which had a sequel he was also in. I believe he goes on to have a career in kind of like stunt and action work. Right, so Urbano Barberini, he plays the character of George. Kind of the female lead, who is the first girl we see. She's the one who gets the ticket and starts the whole process. We follow her through. That is Cheryl, and she is played by Natasha Hovey, who really doesn't have much of a aside from this film, does not really have a genre career. So Cheryl's friend Kathy, on the other hand, is played by Paolo Coso, and Coso was also in the film Demonia and Cat in the Brain. So that's, I believe, like a Fulci. Probably the person who becomes the most notable of this is the girl that we saw who gets cut by the mask. That's Rosemary. She's played by Greta, and Greta is in a bunch of Euro horror films from this time period. Aside from this one, she's in Fulci's Murder Rock, and she's also in a couple of Bruno Mattei films, which, Bruno Mattei films are not, they're more towards the bottom of the Italian horror barrel. She's in Rats and Shocking Dark that he made. So she has a few kind of horror titles under her belt, but this is kind of the film that she's known for. And she's, made a bit of a career these days of being Greta from Demons, She's very much, out there on social media, and she does conventions, and, she's definitely having fun with it now. So the guy who's the kind of the pimp of the story is Bobby Rhodes, and he's the one character, I believe, that crosses over into Demons too, which is kind of fun. Notably, the kind of mysterious masked figure that hands out the tickets, and also a main character in the film that they're watching, is director Michel Sovi. Now Sovi, he's another one who kind of comes up the ranks. He works on Argento films, he works on Fulci films, obviously he works on Lamberto Bava films. He's kind of a little bit of everything he's done to kind of get his backlog. He's, as far as acting though, Sovi's kind of most notable in Fulci's Gates of Hell, also known as City of the Living Dead, as being the guy that watches his girlfriend puke up her entire lower intestines, which is still a tough scene for me to watch, or rather to listen to. It's just disgusting. But I do love that film, so we will talk about that movie eventually. So that's the Fulci film he's acted in. He's also acted in Lamberto Bava's Blade in the Dark, and Fulci's New York Ripper, Argento's Tenebra, Opera, and Phantom of the Opera. I believe he's been in all, he had small parts in all of those. As far as Bava, so obviously he directs Demons 1 and 2. First, he directs the film Macabre. He has Blade in the Dark. I believe that's also before this one. He does a film Delirium, and he does a film The Ogre, which is one of the ones that is kind of in this strange labeling that happens after Demons 2, where several films are kind of considered Demons 3. I believe both the church and the ogre are both labeled Demons 3 at one point. It gets a little fuzzy. This is part of that, when it comes to America, it tends to have a different title thing, I believe. But altogether, Bava directed quite a handful of good films. He also goes into doing a lot of TV kind of thriller directing, which is where Argento ends up doing a lot of work kind of later in his career as well. Divoletti, like I said, this is one of his first films he works on, but he also goes on to do special effects for Argento's opera. He also does The Church, The Sect, Della Morte dell'Amore, and those are all by Solvi. And he goes on to also direct The Wax Mask, which is a film that is another one that was produced by Argento, that was supposed to be directed by Fulci. It was supposed to be the first time that they worked together, but Fulci passed away before the film was, right before the film was going to start production. In the end, Argento gives Divoletti the film to direct. Demons is a film that's kind of got a lot of people involved that are kind of cornerstones to Italian horror, which is another important factor of this film. You have so many big names working on it, or people who will become big names. How kind of over the top the effects are. You have kind of like this spitting of green bile. You have like fingers expanded, teeth being pushed out of the way by new teeth coming in when one becomes a demon. Like I said, there's this like vomiting blood scene. It gets pretty gross. So a lot of this kind of green bile, I believe this is kind of, or we later see kind of Evil Dead 2, where it's like we want to, if it were all blood, it would be considered more intense, you know, and it would be less kind of just actiony fun. So I think that's why we see the green as much. Yeah, we have parts where like pustulant bursts. There's fingers being bit off. It's nasty, but it's not that type of violence that feels vicious in intent, if that makes any sense. It's more the tone. Perhaps the music has a lot to do with this, but the tone of the film never gets to a point where it feels so serious that how violent and grotesque it gets doesn't particularly weigh heavy on you. But we also have this kind of over-the-top action that has nothing to do with the kind of gore of it too. The film, slight spoilers here, but I think you guys understand that there's spoilers on a lot of the, not necessarily plot points within this context, but we have a sequence where the demons are kind of so overpowering the number of humans who are left that, you know, there had been a motorcycle on exhibit in the gallery, so they decide to use that to plow through the demons with a katana, which had also been displayed just for the fun of it in the gallery. It doesn't really make sense why this stuff would be there, but it's really convenient later when you want to have a scene where you have a katana and you're fighting zombie demons, you know? Like, that's what I mean, kind of like this. It hits this absurd level that's just fun. There's a helicopter in the middle of the movie theater at one point. It literally falls into the theater. Like I said, it's a great fun kind of atmosphere, but at the same time, it ends on a very bleak note, which I don't know if an American movie would have done both, where it's so kind of camp and over the top in one aspect, and then on the other side, by the end of it, you don't know if, you know, it's like we're overrun by the demons. At least the city is by the end of the film. So it really seems kind of hopeless, but it still doesn't really change your opinion of just how kind of laid back fun the rest of it was. It's a strange kind of juxtaposition there, but it works. I think it also works in the context of, just in case this doesn't do well, we don't have to make a sequel. We didn't set it up so specifically to have a sequel. You know, it's a safe zone, I think, to say like, well, it looks like all is lost. That could be the end. It's been a long time since I watched Demons 2. So when I rewatch Demons 2 and do our second half, I'll see how well that part holds up with that kind of not leaving it on a cliffhanger. But we shall see. Yeah, I mean, overall, this movie is a fun romp with great music and great gore and some of the biggest names that you're going to want to get to meet in this kind of world of Italian horror. So, let me talk a little bit about the editions. The first version of Demons that I had on DVD, yes, I had it on VHS. I don't have it anymore. I think I gave it away when I got the DVDs. It's a double feature by Anchor Bay. It's part of the Dario Argento collection, Volume 2. So it's still under this Argento banner, even though it's above. See, like I said, this is going to get me the whole time. It has audio commentary, theatrical trailer, and a behind-the-scenes segment. This is the segment I was talking about that is upsetting to me because it really doesn't, it just centers on it being an Argento-produced product. Which makes sense if it's part of your Dario Argento limited edition collection, is you're going to want to focus on that. Bava's on the commentary with Sergio Stavaletti. So, yeah, you can kind of make up for it that way. Also, it has Demons 2 with a commentary. These were like the best way to get it for years. So if you're still collecting your DVDs, this is the edition of Demons you want on DVD. Anchor Bay, limited edition, Dario Argento Collection Volume 2, and this came out in 2001. So this was kind of like the be-all end-all for me on Demons for quite a while. Recently, Synapse basically did the same, but what they do different is you have, there's a lot more extras on this, to be honest. I just want to show you from the slipcase. Alright, so these are new 4K restorations. This has a 1080p presentation. 2 versions of the film. So there's the English and the Italian, but the English language and the Italian language version of the film. It is apparently 2 separate cuts, but I didn't really see a difference in the endings because it said one was longer, the international cut, versus the Italian cut. There was like 2 minutes difference as far as I could tell, and I couldn't find where I had assumed it meant the ending had been cut off, but that was not true. So I'm not quite sure where the difference is there, to be totally honest. It does say that there's different dubbing and sound effects. Considering I'm pretty sure that the VHS I had of it was most likely that cut, it's probably minor differences. So new audio commentary, new audio commentaries, I should say. Again, the featurette is produced by Dario Argento, is the main featurette, which is a video essay. Dario's Demon Days is an interview with him talking specifically about making the Demons films. I will say I was far more interested in the Claudia Simonetti piece because I felt like at this point everything I'd heard was Dario Argento's perspective on this film. So there's a bunch of stuff on here. It's far more than you get on the Demons. Apparently these are archived also from the DVD special editions that Synapse had put out. So I do like that. I didn't have to go seeking out both versions to see all of the extras, and I appreciate that. What is clever about this is here is the Metropole ticket, which is very nice. I like this a lot. There is a full, this art is available in here as a poster, and then there's also a prop card for Demons 2, which I'll show you next time. And then the only other thing I really would put out there, so obviously the Synapse Blu-ray is the definitive, but I also say that this edition of the score is the first time it was released as a full score album, which was 2003, which is very good. On Deep Red Press, Simonetti Productions, So he put this out. Okay. Which, I mean, like I said, I've really grown to love this music, where I used to think it was cheeseball. Now I just think it's fun. And I was lucky enough to get Simonetti to sign this for me. Like I've said in previous, he is one of my actual heroes. I didn't go over the autographs I have on this disc. Apparently, I believe it was 2011. Yeah. So apparently, I looked it up to make sure because it's been so long. In 2011, there was a mini Demons reunion at the Chiller Theater Convention in New Jersey. And there was Lamberto Bava, the director. So it was a reunion for this edition, essentially. So it was Demons and Demons 2 reunion. Stivoletti was there. I did not get his autograph, apparently, or if I did, it was not on here. Garetta was there for the first one, and the star of the second film was there for part 2. So, that's pretty cool. Any other notes I want to give you guys about this? So, right, Bava had been Argento's assistant producer on Inferno and Tenebra, but also co-directed his father's last horror film, Shock. So he co-wrote and co-directed Shock. He also, coming into Demons, had directed Blade in the Dark, which is a giallo that looks like it could have been an Argento giallo, and that's more Bava's direct influence from working with Argento, I feel. And he also did kind of some of these apocalyptic action flicks that were very popular in the time, particularly in Italy. His was Blast Fighter. So, right, like I said, there's some belief that this was supposed to be part 1 in a trilogy. There's differing opinions on how much Argento wrote of Demons. So it seems archivally that Bava had written a story, worked with the screenwriter, and when Argento comes into the picture, he does some rewrites. It seems when you listen to the interviews with Argento that he's saying more like he worked with Bava to flesh out this idea that he had, and once Bava started writing with him, you know, he became solely focused. Also, they do point out in the video essay that a lot of the crew working on the film were also past Argento crew members. So Bava, having worked on set with these individuals on his past few films, it probably is another reason why this film works so well, is because it's a pretty oiled machine at this point. Yeah, see, Argento goes on to say that he co-wrote with Bava, and but Bava loved to improvise, so he would add things kind of on the fly, which Argento does not do. So that was a difference of opinion also as far as writing and how much was written versus how much was improvised later. It was filmed in Germany. While Argento had this kind of heavy-handedness on this production from what I've seen and read in interviews and things, Bava also is kind of known as being really tough on his crew. And Argento phrases it as he was, he knew what he wanted, and he was going to get it that way, and he was very, diehard about it, and that Argento appreciated that in him. Even the actors that I've seen interviewed about it talk about how Bava, he's very, very strong-willed. He's tough, and it's because he knows exactly what he wants. So you don't see a lot of people saying, oh, he was hard to work with. It's more that he was very kind of headstrong about getting it done the way he wanted to do it. It's his film. I'm not sure also if it's proving it's his film when you have someone like Argento that's a pretty dominant name on the set. So it could have been, he could have been kind of, he could have had a little bit more bravado in this respect to kind of like, make sure you understand, this is my picture, not his. But like I say, that this is speculation based on how he said, she said. It seems to be just in whose film it really was. Was it Argento's film? I guess this is like the Poltergeist of Italy, you know, where Poltergeist has this kind of history of, you know, Tobe Hooper directed, Steven Spielberg production. Many people feel it doesn't look like a Tobe Hooper film, it doesn't feel like a Tobe Hooper film, so it must have been directed really by Spielberg with Hooper kind of sort of there. Everything I've heard says that that's not true though. So I think this is similar, where everyone's expecting this to feel and look like an Argento film, and Bava is working very hard, I think, to make sure that he maintains his voice in the production. So I think that's fair if he's kind of known for being very tough on people in that film. Okay, so I think that's really, I mean, I just really want to get across just Demons is an important film in Italian horror because it is unlike everything else that was coming out. It had so many great qualities, but at the same time doesn't kind of fall into what Italian horror is known for. And if anything, what it has of what becomes Italian horror is the gore factor, the over-the-topness that comes from Italian film in general. So yeah, this is not going to feel, there's nothing about this film that feels like a giallo. There's no thriller-like aspects to it. It is a balls-to-the-wall horror movie full of blood and guts and all that great stuff, and lots of 80s hits. It's the score alone is a lot of fun. So if you haven't seen Demons before, I mean, I don't even care if you buy this 2-pack special limited edition. Just get the first one, even if you're not, you know, if you haven't seen them before. You might not want to have to go full whole hog invest on the double disc. I get that, but I do like, there is a single edition from this set of just Demons. So if you haven't seen it before and you're not sure, I would give it a try, because it is probably one of the most fun movies you're gonna watch. That's full of crazy ass demons chomping people in a movie theater while they're watching a movie about a bunch of kids getting chomped on in a cemetery. So this is the third part of my little horror, my plunge into Italian horror. This is definitely my like wholehearted recommendation to everybody out there. If you haven't seen Lamberto Bava's Demons from 1985, check it out. If you have in the past and you hadn't thought about it for a while and you're like, oh wow, Demons, that was a fun movie, watch it again, because you're gonna love it still. I did. So yeah, check it out if you haven't, and watch it again if you have. Well, thanks for hanging out with me today on The Horror Academic, and next time I'm gonna wrap up the Italian horror for now, and the one name that kept coming up today that we haven't seen a movie yet by is Sovi. So next time we do one of the Italian horrors, it'll definitely be a Sovi film. So thanks again for watching The Horror Academic, and I will see you next time.